The clinking of silverware against fine china had always been a familiar symphony, the subtle soundtrack to our seemingly perfect life. But tonight, the melody felt off-key, discordant, like a beautiful song played just slightly out of tune. We were dining at the Gilded Lily, a restaurant my wife, Clara, had chosen for its refined ambience. It was the kind of place where the butter arrived sculpted into delicate swans, where the chandeliers cast a golden glow over tables adorned with crisp white linens, and where the prices could make even the wealthiest patrons swallow hard. Seated with us were our closest friends, Omar and Nora, companions since our college days, and, of course, Clara's business partner, a slick-haired, ever-grinning man named Damon. For the past 6 months, Damon had been an unshakable presence in our lives, a low, persistent hum that had grown into an unbearable drone. At first, he was nothing more than a passing mention, just a name Clara uttered in casual conversation, a colleague collaborating with her on some groundbreaking marketing campaign. Then, the mentions grew more frequent, the late nights at the office became routine, and the distance between Clara and me stretched into a vast, echoing silence. Tonight, she was radiant in his presence. "Damon, tell them about the Johnson account," she said, her fingers resting lightly on his forearm, her voice rich with enthusiasm. I watched as he sat up, his ever-present grin widening, eager to bask in the spotlight she had gifted him. My stomach churned. Omar and Nora, ever the loyal friends, made valiant attempts to draw me into the conversation, but my responses were mechanical, my attention repeatedly stolen by the way Clara's eyes sparkled at Damon's every word. It was a performance, a carefully orchestrated display where I had been cast in the role of the unwitting, silent audience member. "You wouldn't believe how incredibly insightful Damon is," she went on, her voice practically dripping with admiration. "He just understands what makes a business tick, doesn't he? Oh, and the connections. You should see the connections, darling. They're endless." She turned to me, beaming, a smugness in her expression I had never seen before. I forced a smile, the same practiced mask I had worn so often lately that it had begun to feel like part of my skin. Damon continued, rattling off figures and projections, his voice an insufferable buzz in my ears. Then, with a flourish, Clara reached into her bag and pulled out her new phone, a sleek, rose gold monstrosity that had replaced her old one after she claimed it had been accidentally broken. I had my doubts about that. "Oh, I have to show you Damon's concept boards," she gushed, holding the phone aloft like some sacred artifact. "They are simply brilliant." That was it. For months, I had endured the subtle digs, the blatant admiration for another man, the way she made me feel like I was nothing more than a shadow in her periphery. It had been a slow, excruciating unraveling of my self-worth, a gradual descent into a pit of uncertainty and heartache. But beneath the practiced composure, a quiet rage had been simmering, a storm gathering strength, waiting for the perfect moment to break free. That moment was now. "Actually, Clara," I said, my voice startlingly calm against the lively chatter, "I believe I have something to show everyone too." A hush fell over the table. Damon's enthusiastic monologue was abruptly cut short. Clara's hand froze mid-swipe on her phone screen. All eyes turned to me, some curious, others wary. I reached into my jacket pocket, my fingers brushing against the cool metal of the USB drive I had retrieved from her old purse, the same purse she had conveniently misplaced. Lifting it into view, I met her gaze unflinchingly. "I found this yesterday," I said. A single bead of sweat trickled down her temple. The color drained from her face, leaving behind an unsettling pallor. "I plugged the drive into my computer last night. And what I had found? Well, it had made everything painfully clear." I kept my voice steady, though a tremor of anger had begun to surface. What I uncovered was nothing short of illuminating. Reaching into my pocket, I retrieved my phone, plugged the USB drive into a small adapter, and connected it to my device. Within seconds, a projection of my phone screen illuminated the wall behind them. A series of photos emerged, grainy yet undeniable in their clarity. Clara and Damon were not in the office, as they had so often claimed, but in a discreet motel on the outskirts of town. In the images, they were locked in a passionate embrace, their bodies entwined, lost in each other. Then came more pictures, each more damning than the last, leaving no room for misinterpretation. A collective gasp filled the restaurant. The air grew heavy, thick with shock and disbelief. Clara recoiled as if struck, her face draining of color. Her eyes darted wildly, the panic setting in. That's not what it looks like," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with desperation. Omar and Nora sat frozen, their expressions twisted with disbelief, as though they had just witnessed a car crash. Damon, usually so smug, now sat rigid, his hands clenched into fists, his gaze locked onto his plate as if willing himself to disappear. For years, I had been invisible, overlooked, ignored. But not anymore. At this moment, I held all the cards. "Oh, I assure you, Clara," I said, my voice taking on an unfamiliar coldness, each syllable razor-sharp. "It's exactly what it looks like." I stepped forward, tilting the phone slightly, allowing the next set of evidence to fill the screen. Emails, text messages, and an exhaustively detailed log of their so-called business trips to that charming little motel. "You've been lying to me," I continued, my voice unwavering despite the storm of emotions crashing within me. "For months. Parading this charade in front of me and our friends. Thinking you were so clever. Thinking I was too blind to see." Tears welled in her eyes, glistening under the dim restaurant lighting, but it was too late. Too late for remorse. Too late for apologies. They meant nothing now. She had made her choice, over and over again. And I was done playing the fool. "But the company. I was doing it for us," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "For us." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "For us." I repeated, the words laced with disbelief. "Clara, you weren't building something for us. You were tearing us apart. You were so consumed with chasing success, with chasing him, that you completely forgot about our marriage. About me." I turned to Omar and Nora. They sat motionless, their faces etched with sadness, disappointment. They had believed in us, in her, just as I had. "I'm sorry you had to witness this," I said, my tone softening for the first time. "I never wanted to drag you into it, but the truth had to come out." A chair scraped against the floor as Damon finally found his voice, his desperation bubbling to the surface. "Look, man, this is all a misunderstanding." I cut him off with a single, searing look. "You," I said, my voice low, seething with contempt, "are the lowest form of human scum. A coward. A parasite who feeds on the happiness of others. You disgust me." The words landed like a slap. He flinched but said nothing more. Then, I turned back to Clara. The last embers of affection I once held for her had burned to ash. "I want a divorce," I stated, my tone final. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll be hearing from them." Silence hung thick in the air. Clara sat motionless, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Damon looked as if he might be sick. The weight of their betrayal had finally come crashing down, not on me, but on them. I reached for my phone, yanking the USB drive free. As I looked around the restaurant, a wave of melancholy settled over me, an acknowledgement of the years I had wasted, the love I had so freely given to someone unworthy. But beneath that sadness, something else stirred. Liberation. I had exposed the truth. I had freed myself. With one last look at the wreckage I was leaving behind, I turned on my heel and walked away. I didn't look back. Behind me, Clara's muffled sobs filled the air, mixing with Damon's pathetic stammering. But they no longer concerned me. They were nothing more than echoes of a life I no longer belonged to. Stepping out into the cool night air, I took a deep breath, letting the past dissolve into the darkness behind me. The sounds of the restaurant, clinking silverware, murmured conversation, hollow laughter, faded into irrelevance. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. This was not just an ending. It was the beginning of something new.